Hey everybody, it's Jason from the Texas Gun Vault, and today I'm coming to you with another product review. And the product that we're going to be taking a look at today is something really cool, but I'm actually kind of scared to shoot it because it's so short and it's chambered in 7.62 by 39. So I'm kind of worried this thing is going to be really loud. And probably you can tell from the thumbnail, it has a huge flash to it. We're going to be taking a look at the Primary Weapon Systems, or the PWS Diablo 7.5 inch 7.62 by 39 upper for the AR-15. Now, I am reviewing this because one of my local subscribers who has lent many guns to the channel, his name is Ken, he actually had a problem with this. He bought this and he took some steel case ammunition to the range in one of his own lower receivers, which is SBR'd, and he was having some light primer strikes, and he wasn't sure if it was the ammunition or his gun. So he let me borrow the upper receiver, and I put it on my Barrett Rec 7 SBR lower and took it to the range. Initially, I was just going to make sure that it was running properly for him, but I was like, you know, this thing is so cool and so different, and you can buy it as just an upper receiver. I thought it was worth a look at to do a product review. So what exactly is this? Now, this is an older version. I went to their website on the day that I am recording this, and they offer very different handguards. Now, all the handguards they have are M-LOK, but this one does use a quad rail, and Ken tells me this one is called the Diablo, but on their website, I think it's called the Mark I, but I might be wrong on that. They offer this in a couple of different series, but since it has the older handguard, I'm not 100% sure. It is also a gas piston upper receiver. So that's going to be a huge advantage, I think, on something this small, because you might really get a lot of gas back in the face if this was a direct impingement gun. But this is a gas operated gun, and it's supposed to have a pretty darn reliable piston system in it. So my biggest concerns about this, of course, are going to be the flash. I mean, 7.62 by 39 out of a 7.5 inch barrel, it can be kind of loud, have a huge concussion, and that might be a little bit distracting. I think the whole philosophy of this upper receiver was supposed to be a PDW type of firearm, and I think Primary Weapon Systems designed these to kind of compete in the MP5 market, but chambered in rifle caliber. So I'm also concerned with such a short barrel, is it going to be able to stabilize this round? Is it going to be reliable? And what's the recoil going to be like? And of course, is it going to have any issues with any different types of ammunition? Like I said, Ken was having some problems with. But I think it is a pretty darn attractive upper receiver. These things are honestly a little bit pricey. They're not very big, but they are definitely pricey. And there's that quad rail handguard. As I said, now they offer everything pretty much in M-LOK. So I'm going to go ahead and take this thing to the range. I'm going to load up one of these magazines, and I'm not really a big fan when it comes to AR-15 magazines that take 7.62 by 39. They never really seem to work, be reliable, and load well for me. But who knows, maybe these smaller and shorter ones will be just fine. So I'm gonna load up one of these, and I'm gonna start off with the steel case ammunition that Ken let me borrow, because I think that's the place we need to start. We're gonna find out if this thing has light primer strikes on this particular lower, and I am running a Geisley super semi-automatic trigger in this thing, so hopefully the springs are nice and strong, and we'll be able to dent these primers enough to have them go off. And I'm going to see what the initial recoil and the concussion is like, and is this thing even enjoyable to shoot. So here we go, my first impressions and first shots with the PWS Diablo, and the older style Diablo 7.5 inch 7.62 by 39 upper receiver for the AR-15 platform. So let's see how this thing goes. All right, and so what I can tell you from those results is that I was actually pleasantly surprised. I wasn't really sure what this thing was going to do when I pulled the trigger for the first time. Now, using this ammunition, it definitely had a big flash, but this muzzle device, which is kind of a gnarly looking muzzle device, actually does a pretty darn good job of keeping that blast downrange. And even though I could see that flash, I really didn't feel the concussion of the propellant and the explosive coming out of the barrel. So actually it was kind of pleasurable to shoot. It wasn't too bad. And it being a piston-driven gun, I didn't get any gas back in the face. So it was actually kind of pleasant to shoot. When it came to the recoil, it's no more than a standard AR-15. The biggest issue right now is just that flash. And I know some people are going to absolutely love that because in some ways this is kind of a range toy. I understand that they made this for law enforcement, but I think something chambered in this caliber with such a short barrel is just a little bit overkill when it comes to the PDW style of firearms. So the next thing I want to do is set the target at about 15 yards. I'm going to load up another magazine, but this time I'm going to go with some American-made brass-cased ammunition from Winchester. And we're going to see, because I want to try some different types of ammunition to see if I have any of these issues that maybe Ken had, and to make sure this thing is reliable. So here we go, another magazine. I'm going to continue to see if this gun remains to be accurate, which obviously it is. It's actually kind of pleasurable to shoot, to my surprise, and see how the brass case 7.62x39 performs in this upper receiver. And my results are pretty much the same, and my thoughts are the same as it came to the steel-cased ammunition in my first magazine. The gun is obviously very pleasurable to shoot despite what it is. Now this ammunition is obviously loaded a lot differently. It did not really have a flash at all, and I would say the overall feel and concussion using this Winchester brass cased was probably that about of an AR-15 with about a 12.5 or 14.5 inch barrel. That's kind of what it felt when I was shooting it. It actually was not that bad. And so it is really impressing me. And this piston system is working great. I'm not having any reliability issues. The gun seems to be accurate, and honestly, it's just kind of fun. It is loud though, but that's to be expected with such a short barrel chambered in this round. All right, I want to do one more thing. I'm going to set the target at 25 yards, and yes, I know it's only 25 yards, but remember, this is a PDW style weapon, and that's the range this thing really is designed to be used at. So 25 yards, I'm going to kind of bench rest it, being that this handguard is so short, I really can't rest it on my bags, but I'll probably rest it on the magazine, and we're going to see how accurate this is, and of course, if it continues to be accurate, and if I discover any other issues. So here we go, 25 yards, another magazine. And absolutely zero complaints. Man, this thing is actually really nice and a lot of fun. I don't know if I necessarily would want one because I'm not really a big fan of 7.62 in an AR platform, but maybe something like this in 5.56 might be pretty cool, but still it might be a little bit too short. When I was younger, I used to think barrels this short were really cool, and of course getting into the NFA, you thought shorter was better, but then you started to use them and you're like, man, that flash, that concussion, they're just not as fun as you think they would be, and you lose so much when it comes to the ballistics. In my personal opinion, when it comes to the AR-15 platform, I think the best barrel length is between 12.5 and 14.5 inches. And most of my SBRs now are 12.5 inches. I just really enjoy shooting those. I think I get the feel of a longer barrel, but you get the compact package of a shorter barrel. But this thing is honestly really surprising me and a lot more fun to shoot than I thought. However, now that I've shot about 60 to 80 rounds through this thing, there is a big issue that I'm noticing. And it doesn't matter where I hold it here on the handguard. This is getting unpleasant to shoot because it's getting so hot. Now, you might notice that this gas block is right up here close to this handguard. Now, I don't know about the new M-LOK handguards, but it is definitely taking a lot of heat from that, and it's transferring into this handguard. And it also does appear that there are screws which go into that gas block. So it's not like this is a free float rail, which would prevent some of that heat transfer. Those screws are transferring that heat. And after about 60 to 80 rounds, honestly, about half of this handguard you can't hold unless you were wearing gloves. So I got out my laser thermometer and I was just curious how hot this handguard is getting. So let me show you these results. And it is kind of getting hot, and that's not after many rounds. So I can only imagine if you took this thing to the range and put 150 to 200 rounds of this thing, it would really be smoldering. That temperature might rise to about 180 to almost 200 degrees. So you would definitely need some type of rail covers, maybe gloves, something to mitigate that heat. And I also worry about having any type of accessory like this angled foregrip that Ken has put on melting. It could get really, really hot. But that's not the result that I was expecting. I thought I just wouldn't like this upper receiver at all. But I really do. Its performance is outstanding. It seems to be reliable and very accurate. This very short barrel stabilizes 7.62, no problem whatsoever. The flash is kind of cool, but if you're using American-made 7.62, it doesn't really seem to have that problem whatsoever. It's honestly a lot of fun to shoot. It's easy to put on any type of AR-15 lower, especially if it's an SBR, or if you have a pistol lower receiver, you could do that as well. Of course, now we live in a post-ATF pistol brace world, so it might not be as enjoyable because you can't have a brace, but having a stock on this thing is awesome. It's honestly a lot of fun. For me, this thing would be more of a range toy, even though, as I said, they did design this for law enforcement, but it definitely is cool. Now, looking at their website, these things are kind of pricey, but you would have to decide if it would be worth it at that price for something like this, and of course the more modern handguard options. But I come away from this review liking this thing a lot. It might not be for me, but I know this would tickle the fancy of many AR-15 owners that may not want to buy an AK but have a gun chambered in 7.62 by 39. It works. It's reliable. The only downside is that it really does get hot, so you might not be able to spend too much time at the range with it. So what are my final thoughts on the primary weapon systems, Diablo 7.62 by 39 upper receiver for the AR-15? Well, I gotta say, on my star system, I gotta give this thing high marks. It works well. So I would easily give it 4.5 stars out of 5. I honestly thought I was going to come away from this with a 2.5 star review. Just going, it's too loud, flashes too much, concussion sucks, but it's fun. And it works. It's pretty darn cool, but I got to deduct those points because this handguard does get hot. So hopefully they have addressed that in some way in the future. Now, Ken did tell me that at some point he did have some work done on this, and Primary Weapon Systems did upgrade the piston in this, but I don't know what the changes were. I believe this is now more of their modern design, and as I said, this is an older upper, so they obviously changed that and upgraded it, but I don't know what the big changes were. I tried to figure that out online and I couldn't find out. But whatever they did, it definitely works. It just gets hot. And if you run the right ammo through it, you definitely get that big flash. So some people are going to absolutely love that. Some people are not. So what do you guys think? Is this an upper receiver that would interest you? Do you guys like guns like this? Such a short package for 7.62. I don't know. But you also do have those issues with the magazine. And that's the last thing I will leave you with. And it is the magazine. I'm not going to deduct any points from the upper for this. But these AR-15 style magazines for 7.62 honestly just kind of suck. They just don't work well. Well, these ran just fine, but honestly loading them is a little bit hard because of the shape of the taper of 7.62. They kind of want to come out the front when you're loading them. It's just not a magazine that was originally designed for this round. So loading magazines for this just aren't as fun. And I do know, depending on the company in which you get your magazines from, you could have reliability issues. Some are better than others, or known to be better than others. So do your research before you buy magazines for a gun like this. So there you go, 4.5 stars for the PWS Diablo 7.62 by 39 upper receiver for the AR-15. So as I said, let me know if something like this interests you, and do you own something like this, chambered in this caliber? So, as always, thanks for watching.